Hello, I am Sophia. On this platform, we are on a mission of creating heaven on earth marriages by preventing and breaking the cycle of intimate partner violence, also known as domestic abuse, marital abuse, or spousal abuse. And we are doing this through education and service delivery. Now, today we are going to look at some misconceptions about intimate partner violence. And the first one is that if it's that bad, why don't the victim just leave? But leaving an abusive relationship is one of the most difficult, courageous, and in some cases, dangerous decisions that the victim will ever make, especially when there are children involved. It is a dangerous decision because when the perpetrator gets to know that the victim is planning to leave, he might harm her. And even in some cases, when the victim succeeds in leaving, he still goes after her to harm her. So it's very dangerous and you have to be careful. And so this makes the victim want to stay longer. The second aspect is that when the victim is financially dependent, she is thinking, if I live here, where do I go? Do I have enough money to rent a place? Can I pay the children's school fees? Can I feed them? Can I clothe them? Medical bills, and so on. And so this makes her not to be able to just leave. And when it comes to child custody too, in cases where the perpetrator is well to do and carries a big title in society, the woman is afraid because she knows that the perpetrator can use his money to influence decisions. And so she's afraid to even go to Dovsu because her children might be given to the perpetrator. And also in our traditions, it teaches that the children belongs to the man. So you are afraid to go and leave your children there for them to suffer. So this makes the victim to stay longer or might not even be able to leave that relationship. The second misconception is that IPV is always physical, but IPV includes sexual abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse, social abuse, and so on. Physical is just one of the forms of intimate partner violence. And I will say physical violence is actually the last form of intimate partner violence because before it can get to physical, there are already other forms of violence or abuse going on in the relationship, like sexual abuse, like economic abuse, or psychological abuse. So, physical abuse is actually the last form. When you see physical abuse, just know that already there are other forms that have been going on in that relationship. The third misconception of IPV is that IPV is caused by alcohol and drug use. But alcohol and drug use can only increase the frequency at which it happens. But alcohol and drug use do not cause violence in intimate relationships. If they did, then everyone who drinks or use drugs would have been violent. But as it stands, the worst abusers do not drink, and you can't even associate the use of drugs with them. They are sober and people who carry big titles in society. And this also explains why the victim cannot just live. The fourth misconception is that physical violence is the worst form of IPV. But we all have seen people who are physically challenged do wonders in life. We have seen the blind do wonderful things in life. We have seen people born without limbs do wonderful things in life. We have seen people who have got one hand or leg do wonderful things in life. But can you think of one mad person who has done wonderful things in life? And that is what emotional and psychological abuse can do. The target of psychological abuse is the mind. It distorts the victim's perception of reality. So she's always confused and unsure of things. The sixth one is that IPV only affects the poor, uneducated, or women who cannot stand up for themselves. But IPV cuts across race, gender, economic background, social status, educational level, and even religion. Another misconception of IPV is that IPV affects only a small percentage of the population, but IPV is a public health problem that affects 1 in 3 women globally. And every day, an average of 3 women die from IPV. And in Ghana, 41.6% of women aged 15 to 49 years are affected by IPV. Some people also think that both partners are responsible for IPV, but IPV is not a mutual fight between a couple. It is about one partner in the relationship who tries to gain and maintain control over the other one. The last misconception about IPV that I would like to share is that it is better for the children to have both parents because they are not affected if only they are not there to see it. But IPV has consequences for children and young people, even if they do not see it or experience abuse. They are still impacted by seeing injuries on the victim or damage to property. IPV can impact children's physical, emotional, and brain development. It affects their sense of security and their ability to cope in different situations and contexts. In conclusion, IPV is not a private family matter. It is a public health issue and a human rights issue. So it is our business. So let's rise up and say no to IPV. Remember, on this platform, we are on a mission of creating heaven on earth marriages. Bye bye.